Well, after a lengthy season suspension, a trip to Disney, an inter-Canadian series, a move to Hartford, a trophy controversy, and plenty of other twists and turns, the most bizarre regular season in Toronto FC history has come to an end. My name is Mitchell Tierney. Today on Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks, we'll look back at the regular season that was, look ahead to the 2020 MLS Cup playoffs as well. Our guest this week from Come On You Reds podcast and a producer with MLSE is Jerome Cheng. We're very excited to talk to him about all things Toronto FC content creation and plenty more. And as always, we look forward to hearing your thoughts as well throughout the show. So join in the discussion in the comments section wherever you are watching today. Jeff, Michael, we did it. We got through the regular season portion at least. Again, so many twists and turns looking back at where the season has gone. It's wild, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, wild styles. Absolutely. Who's gonna read off all those Martin Bailey stats that we got on our Slack channel yesterday?
A lot to get to.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, we'll get to the stats in at some point here. Oh, we all know my reading ability, so it might come down to Jeff here. But let's kick things off here by talking about the biggest story in Toronto FC circles this week, and I guess it's less of a story and more just reflecting on the 2020 season as a whole. Toronto FC end up in second in the Eastern Conference and in the league. I guess we'll start with you, Jeff. Just your general thoughts on a campaign that, as we said, had quite the twists and turns throughout it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain level of relief that it's over. The last game that we were treated to was all kinds of exciting, and despite the score watching and realizing that it was over relatively early, it was still a great game. I mean, I'm just trying to read Ivan's comment here, talking about how Piatti's such a massive difference, and I would be inclined to agree with him. We've missed him over the last couple of games.
Mm-hmm. Just on a whole, from a macro level, obviously this has to be a success. You finish second in the league, you're the Supporter Shield hunt until the very end. It's just, I don't like the way the TFC ended. I don't think anybody does. Obviously injuries played a concern, but I also think this team sort of lost their identity. And I think Michael Bradley even said that a little bit in his post-game presser after their last match. They need to kind of refine what works for them. So going into that first postseason game, I think that's going to be something to watch. Which TFC are we going to see? And do they know how to win a game? And do they know what they're trying to do to accomplish to win a game? It seems like right now that purpose is kind of... I don't want to say it's gone because I still think it's there, but I just think they're struggling to find it a little. And injuries obviously do play a major factor in that. But at the end of the day, like if this team doesn't have all their players come November 24th, their first playoff game, is that an excuse that fans, the club itself, is that going to be an excuse that they're okay with? We had injuries, so we might not put out our best performance. I don't think so. I don't think that's acceptable right now. But again, as I will say, on a macro level, with everything that Toronto FC have had gone through, this season overall, just regular season, that's a success. They're second place.
Yeah, it's impossible not to label it as a success. Impossible. But we it's sort of our jobs to look a little bit deeper, and I'm inclined to agree with you. It's weird how quickly that kind of vibe has dissipated, and the questions need to be asked. Is it playing in Hartford catching up with the team? Is it all the outside stresses? There was a rather momentous political event that went on over the last week. Was it kind of distraction there? And conversely, was Philly winning the Shield due to the fact that Philadelphia rules as a city, and Pennsylvania's kind of got a little bit karmically in terms of karmic points to cash in. I don't know.
Seriously, shut up, Philly.
Yeah. But it is what it is. It is what it is. The last 4 games have been interesting. I mean, is a good word for that. And now we get to see the team come out in the playoffs and hopefully prove any naysayers wrong that have kind of taken a bit of the sheen off TFC's performance over the last little while.
This October has been so crazy because there's been so many games that Toronto FC have played. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I think it's around 7 or 8. So we have to think back all the way to like the beginning of October when they were beating the Philadelphia Union 2-1. They beat the Columbus Crew right before that, the end of September. And this team looked like the team to beat. And honestly, they looked like the team to beat, and they were in control up until 2 weeks ago. And they looked like a team that wasn't making any excuses, whether it was, anything going on, any extracurricular factors, or, anything that came this team's way, they managed to overcome. And it was up until that obviously that loss against Philadelphia, that drubbing against Philadelphia, where they sort of lost their stride, and they haven't really been able to fully find it back yet. There have been moments of it. There have been moments where we've seen, a lot of positivity from this team, but they're not the same team that was running every other squad out of this park and out of it just, can they find that? That's the question. That's the ultimate question.
Yes. Something else that in that vein that's kind of concerned me of late is the way they've started games. I mean, we at the start of the season and in the Disney tournament, we were all talking about ending the games and not being able to finish out results. But probably much more concerning is the way Toronto FC seems to get behind early on in games. And I guess we'll get to those Martin stats now, because when Toronto FC scored first this season, they're 10 wins, 3 draws, 0 losses. But in all those games they've lost so far this season, they've had the lead for 0 seconds. So that first goal does matter. And the past few games, Toronto FC has not put themselves in a good position to get that first goal just right out of the gate. I kind of joked on Twitter that whatever Greg Vanney's saying to them at halftime, you should start saying to them at the start of the game. But do you think it's, the substitutes, the way Toronto FC is switching things up? Why is it that they come out so flat, and then, most games they seem to be able to find their footing come the second half, but, in an elimination playoff game, that's not good enough.
Is it a game plan thing? Is it a wait and see approach? Like, let's see what they come out with, and then we're going to adjust to taste. And sometimes teams come out so on the front foot that TFC just gets railroaded before they can actually get into the game.
I just think they're trying to do a lot of things at once.
That's
they're
fair.
Trying to obviously incorporate players back into the side. They're obviously trying to get certain players going, like Tsubasa Endo. They're trying to, again, like, reincorporate Jonathan Osorio and Jose Altidore back into this mix, while giving some youngsters some playing time, some looks. Obviously, Ralph Priso. Like, there's just a lot going on right now. And again, it falls back on my original point, is that this team has sort of lost their identity, and they really need to refine that, because before 2 weeks ago, up until 2 weeks ago, we knew what this team was. We knew that this team was going to be difficult to play against, and we knew that they were not going to give anyone any yard of space. Now I can't really say the same thing, because you throw the press at TFC, and all of a sudden it looks like they can't keep the ball. It looks like they can't find the passes in between the lines. It just they look so simple when they are way more intricate than that, and it's just right now it's just they're not on the right page.
Is it down to Piatti? Is it down to how much chemistry he has in that midfield, and how much more comfortable Paz is playing with him?
That's a good question. Here's this. Out of the players who are missing right now, let's say I'll throw Richie Lorea into that mix. Marquis Delgado, obviously Pablo Piatti, Justin Morrow. Who is the player that, if you could have one player back for the postseason, who would it be out of those 4?
I think it's Piatti, and I know over Lorea, that seems like a lot considering what Richie's done this season. But the way that Greg Vanney wants to play with wide players, and the way he seems to always line up regardless of who he has available to him, I don't think you can play with wingers without Piatti, because I don't think there's 2 wide players on Toronto FC who have proven consistently to be good enough this season. And we know Jaden Nelson's going to get there. He's shown flashes of that ability this season, but without Piatti, I just don't think you can properly play with 2 wingers and get the best out of this side. So if you don't have Pablo Piatti, then I think you're in trouble for the playoffs, or you have to try something a little bit different. We've seen them play kind of more of a 4-4-2 that I think's worked a little bit better, but I would say Piatti personally.
Yeah, we've got a few shouts for Lorea, but mostly Piatti, mostly agreements. Yeah.
You'd say Piatti as well, just for the reasons that Bench listed there.
I mean, it's a tough shout, because when Lorea is on, they were game planning for him, right? And a super sub, especially in a one and done game, can't be undervalued. But for overall team shape, it's got to be Pablo, and that's amazing considering how much of the question mark was on him, was over him when the season started. I think the team looks a lot different with Piatti in there, and it's got to bring him over the line just how much more comfortable Paz is when Piatti's on the field. Do you know what I mean?
I'll simplify that a little bit. It's just Toronto FC's depth at wing is way less than it is at fullback. And Richard Lehrer, yes, he does create on the wing, but Pablo Piatti's job is to be that creating winger, and does a lot of the attacking work. So yeah, Richard Lehrer does get highlighted because he does get forward when he does, and he does do really well at it. He's really good at it. Mm-hmm. But Pablo Piatti, that's his day job, is creating from that right hand side. So I agree with you guys. I think Pablo Piatti is the biggest kind of missing piece right now. And that is with all due respect to Marky Delgado, Justin Moore, and Richard Lehrer, who are all important pieces to this team. And that can't be understated as we head into this postseason here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully come November 24th, we aren't having this conversation and all of those guys are available, but we'll get a little peek of that a little bit later in the Michael Singh injury update. But we do have our guest waiting in the wings here. So we'll get Jerome on here momentarily whenever he's ready to be brought on.
Excited for this one.
No, me too.
Excited for this one.
Absolutely.
There he is.
Joined by Jerome Cheng from the Come On You Reds podcast, the producer at MLSE, and of course a yacht rock aficionado. Jerome, how you doing?
I was waiting for that.
I'm glad we're consistent, if not anything. But Jerome, first and foremost, I mean, what a wild regular season. That it seems like literal years ago that there was that home opener against New York City FC. That was, just a different world back then. And then you've got Disney, you've got the Canadian series, and then all the different twists and turns. But looking back at the season as a whole, what was kind of the highlight for you?
There's so many just because it happened in so many different stages. Home opener was great. It was almost, when home opener was happening, we already started seeing signs of like COVID, like coming up. A lot of us at that point weren't taking it seriously enough. And then just the week after, they have the whole NBA shutdown and everything goes down. But I remember we went to home opener, and as a content team, we were like, oh, we're going to celebrate. We're going to go out. We want to do something. So we did like a full karaoke that night. It was almost like we somehow knew something was going to happen, and we were sending ourselves off. So like that was a fantastic moment that I think we all still talk about to this day.
What was your jam?
The jam of the night for the team, and this is to shout out Shane Wright, fellow admin with the Toronto FC account. It has to be Train.
Drop for Jupiter. Oh my God.
Oh, wow. Can we hear a bar, Jerome?
Yeah,
wow. A bar?
You're gonna have to put me back in BMO Field. You're gonna have to get a car to get the win. You're gonna have to get a bunch of drinks.
Yeah, a couple beers and maybe
a couple of beers, and then
left that part
last minute decision to go to karaoke, and then definitely get the bar.
So no was the easier.
So no for now.
Yeah.
All right, Jerome, talk to me. Talk to me a little bit. Sorry, go. No, keep going.
Okay,
keep going.
Hit me. Go ahead.
I wanted to find out a little bit about what it is that you do behind the scenes. Give those fans a little insight into what it is exactly that you do.
So I am a creative producer with MLSC. I do, depending on the project, I'm either doing a little bit of shooting, editing, or producing, or a mix of them. For my end, I work on the Come On You Reds podcast that you mentioned, Red Alert, a couple of our digital pieces, but it's really a whole team thing. When it comes to All for One, that's Greg Vierman as our lead producer, Thomas Laraise as our main editor, and Kylie Templeton as the DP. If you're ever there, at BMO Field, you'll definitely see Kylie right by on the side there shooting on her Sony FS7. Good camera. Captures some nice stuff. But yeah, so for me, I work with the team, digital team, Eric and Shane, and we just come up with stuff. Like we have a regularly scheduled programming, and then every now and then, I think we've just kind of built this unit, this tight unit where, if something comes up, a cool idea comes around, we just kind of go for it. And you've seen it. I know this group has definitely seen it through Twitter and Instagram in general. So you're very familiar. Yeah.
And how did you end up in maybe the best job in the universe? Just to tell our listener.
That's a great question. So I started actually. So doing video production is my second career. Very quickly. So I studied computer science and worked in IT for like years before I was like, I think I could do something creative. So I'm
thinking of getting into IT. So there you go.
There you go. So we'll talk after about what positions are like, just the trade-off. But so I went to Humber for a multimedia program that led to an internship at MLSC. The internship was video production, and that was the winter of 2017. And as anyone knows, whether I say it on Come On Your Reds or say it online, like soccer is still pretty new to me. Basketball was my original sport, but coming out of my internship, they're like, we want to keep you on. We want you to work on the show called Red Alert for Toronto FC. Do you want to work with Toronto FC? I was like, sure. I'm going to have to learn this team, learn everything that's going on with it. And of all the seasons to jump onto the team, 2017. So
that's awesome.
And you just kind of like walk into it. You're learning the team. I've definitely learned a lot more about them ever since, and the longer history. But coming in for about a year, I was just like, so this team just wins all the time. Like we just roll through things, and every week we just celebrate a new accomplishment, a new record. Just take every trophy that's available to us. But then
and then 2018 hit.
2018 hits. I think it catches up with us a bit, but then we have this 2019 run. So, my favorite thing, one of my favorite things I've ever come across was Jonathan Osorio post game finding our cameras and just like going like 3 and 4, what's new, and and it's just like obviously TFC has had a long journey to get to this kind of level, but for the last couple of years, I don't know many Toronto sports teams that can claim this level of like sustained greatness. So shout out to them.
So Jerome, what's your sell? If people who don't watch soccer here in Toronto, obviously you have a great connection with the basketball community. What's your sell to those who aren't quite into the soccer scene yet? Because you were there once. So
no, that's a great thing, and I honestly think about that all the time. I think the first thing, obviously, is right now it's like if you like sports and you want to follow a team that is consistently in the hunt, like that, you just know that the bar, like the lower bar for them, is just like being in the playoffs, but we're always in the conversation. Like, that's a team to follow. If you want a rabid fan base, like that's a team that you want to watch live. If you want a team that within their league can boast an MVP candidate, like with all due respect, and obviously I love all Toronto sports teams, like only one of them has like a front runner and has had one in the last couple of years,
Yeah.
And so there's just so much that goes into it. And I think it's kind of like a cult. Once you're in, like it's so hard to describe it from the outside, but once you're in, it's just whether it's directly with the guys on the team or what's within the fan base. Obviously, we're like Michael and I are very heavily into Twitter. I mean, all of us here are heavily into Twitter, but NBA Twitter is like a big thing. Raptors Twitter is a big thing, but like I feel like TFC Twitter's got a lot of potential. Like I think MLS Twitter, like we're on the come up. So it's right now I would say this is the indie rock band that you definitely want to be on top of, so you can say when they make it big. But it's, trust me, just come in and see what it's like. It's worth it.
That's a good sell. Good sell.
Yeah, it's good sauce. Damn. Okay, so say you've got to pump out quality content, and you've got a deadline of end of day. Which TFC player do you go to for guaranteed goal? And why is it Lawrence Simon and Chris Mavinga?
Okay, so Chris, I would say, has been our 2020 MVP for content, hands down, ever since marketing day. I just remember being at marketing day, and my role that day was I was just doing some backup cam for All for One, doing behind the scenes, and only one player that day was pulling me over to film something, and that was Chris. And it was fresh off the Toronto Raptors win, so he was doing a Serge Ibaka impression. He was communicating, or he was engaging everyone else on the team. And if anyone is familiar with a marketing day, it is a long, early day that no one's really in the mood for energy wise. So to watch Chris, like kick Tsubasa Endo while he's like lying on the pitch trying to just like get some rest is it's a fun time. So Chris has definitely been my MVP that way, but it's it depends on the content that you want. Like what are you looking for? Like if you're looking for like some like very quick entertainment, I think Chris is great that way. If you're looking for like some really good sound bites, you got like the Alex Bonos, who just is on top of it whenever it comes to like, if you ask a question, you're just like, let's hope we get like a quote, like he'll give you a full paragraph of like choice stuff. Quentin Westberg, you have it just really depends. Jonathan Osorio, low key, if you want just like that good confidence, a good like one liner, like Osa will just pull one out of nowhere. Any of the young guys have been fun. Jacob Schaffelberg, the sweetest person in the world. I'm just staring out of my window and Jimmy's Coffee is just down the road over there. I think I did really give you a great answer. I think 2020 I'll give Chris Baviga the MVP so far, but that's also the blessing of this team. Like you have so much variety. It's such a fun group to be around.
Yeah. My follow-up question is, when are you going to put something that can actually hurt them in the box so that they reach in and it's like stuff on fire or scorpions, right? I mean, you're leaning towards that direction. So.
We'll have to definitely come to you when we're getting to our next marketing day, just to like talk about what is like the save in between.
Oh my God, please! I never want it.
That's a good question for Eric and Shane. I think they're behind a lot of the fun marketing day stuff that we do that you'll end up seeing throughout the season. And I don't know, like, are there waivers that we need to sign on that?
Sulfuric acid, man.
Is that the move? Yeah,
I think that might be the move. Yeah,
you got to go with the Gillette Stadium field turf. Put that in there.
Well, see, at that point, like that's where we can like ask if we want to get like some global like like some sponsoring on it, right? I don't know if that's the best look of saying like your turf is trash, but
you mentioned Jacob Schaffelberg. I wanted to quickly bring up his mustache video, which is one of my favorite, I think, pieces of TFC content this season.
Donate to his Movember.
Already done.
Yeah, me too. Just the way he's mugging for the camera. He's like, Movember. I've watched that video probably too many times, but I did want to ask you what are some of your favorite pieces of TFC content you guys have put together this season?
That's a varied question too. So I think the first one that comes to mind is our return to play piece. It's a serious one, but it was just kind of our one where we were on that hiatus, and there's just all these conversations that are going around of like, how do we let everyone know that we're back? And typically in like sports media, you will kind of aim to do something that's really hype and really big, but we kind of wanted to temper it down, just given how it is and how it was, definitely, especially during that time. So there's, COVID that's going on. There was everything that was happening around George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the Black Lives Matter movement. And we wanted to more reflect the voice of the team and less a kind of branding, marketing, like soccer is back. Because I think there was just this level of like, there are things so much bigger than sports all the time that we really need to like call more attention to. And so we wanted to be honest with it. And I think I was just really proud of how everyone behind the scenes came together for it, and especially how the team really got involved. Like, it's very rare that we're doing a pre-production scripting and planning where we're talking to like Ali Curtis about it, and we're asking about his input and how we can achieve the right voice that reflects how he feels and how the club feels. And to be able to do things like that, to do something kind of what we feel is like more important, that was really good. On the fun side, I got to shout out Greg Vierman, who's been out there for MLS is back, who's now there in Hartford. I think All for One team is going to grow come playoffs, which is really encouraging to hear. But Greg has just been, like the team, just on the road all the time. When he's back in town, he's quarantined. And he is not naturally a shooter, but he just kind of like stepped up huge this season and telling us like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to pull it off, and absolutely nailing it. And if there's anything that reflects Greg perfectly, it is playing with the boys parts 1 and 2.
Yeah, that was amazing.
It's so amazing. I never thought that all of our offhand jokes about 80s movies in group chats would somehow translate into actual content, and we'd see like Top Gun level parodies and things like that. So
to be fair, if you've got 4 guys playing with their shirts off and you don't put that login song in, you're probably doing something wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, are we really that talented, or this team just giving us like all that we need and we just have to hit record? And I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And then the last one, which you mentioned off the top, I as a personal thing, I have to say Yacht Rock.
Yeah.
Come on, Yacht Rock. It's the perfect culmination of how much my relationship with Gareth Wheeler has developed over the course of like the last couple of seasons, that we get to this point and he'll make an offhand joke about Yacht Rock and I'm like, no, we're gonna run with this. We're gonna burn it into the ground as hard as we can.
You can never. That Doobie Brothers tune is the best tune ever written in the history of music. So
it's fantastic.
Exactly.
And that's like a personal goal of mine. Before I even knew I wanted to do this, I knew one day I wanted to do a parody of the Cool Rock compilation that I used to watch growing up all the time.
Yeah, the scroll was perfect. The white scroll was perfect.
I actually, if you look at my Premiere project, you will see that the Cool Rock export is in there. Like I downloaded it and I was
amazing. Of course. Yeah, of course.
Attention to detail. That's important. That's a lesson for the kids.
Yeah. I want to open it up to the viewers as to, what are their shouts for the best pieces of content. I know my friend George can't get enough of Schaffelberg's Spanish lesson from the, I think that was the MLS's back. And I have a soft spot for the Mavanga bus because I thought that was amazing. And I also
do you want to know some behind the scenes for that?
Well, the technical skills. You had a chase vehicle. It was crazy. Like it was that was some good production values. I dug that. Anyway, continue. Yeah, give us the insight.
Oh no, yeah. So since you mentioned that piece, that one was really fun just because it was. You don't think a piece like that is actually like days or weeks in the making, but we finally like get Gallagher on the team. And then I think we caught a comment saying like, when will Chris drive him to the pitch? And so we just sat on it. And like, shout out Shane right there again. He's like, I'm going to talk to Tony. I'm going to talk to Chris. I'm going to see if they're willing to drive together. And that was it. And then at that point, while we're standing out there, we see there's a second cart there. I'm like, put me on the other cart.
Yep.
We're going to follow them along. This is going to be much bigger than it ever needs to be. It's well worth it.
Yeah, it was absolutely well worth it. I mean, no shouts in yet, and that's funny. We do have a question from Gavin, and I don't think you know the answer to this. He's asking, how do we get Toronto supporters when allowed back in to be in their seats for the kickoff? Kickoff of what?
Oh, okay.
Kickoff of what, Gav? Just a general kickoff? Like, are we watching
for a kickoff?
Yeah,
I'd say I say the first thing we all do is we wear our masks.
Yeah.
I think we all practice social distancing and safety as much as possible, and like let's nip this in the bud as much as we can. That responsibility is the first step. Obviously, there's just a larger thing beyond us in terms of like what we can do around like what will happen with COVID. But I will say, no team wants to be on the road. Like no team wants to not be playing at home. And obviously with something like Toronto FC and something like soccer, I don't think any supporters want to be able to be watching it. Like as fun as it is, maybe watching a bar, like they don't want to be doing that. Like we kind of got a hint of that last season when all of our playoff games were on the road, not being able to, host MLS Cup. And I think, and any of the games, like I would say there was a really special feeling about taking those games on the road and to lift I will say, lifting a trophy in your opponent's home, there is a certain level of savagery that feels really good about it, especially especially like when you are able to have like these supporter sections, the people who show out. So like that just feels really great. Like I think so. My role during all those matches was I was just trying to stay in the supporter section as much as possible and capture things going on over there. And I think the big one that to be a part of, which was like insane, was the Quentin Westberg penalty save against Atlanta. And just the sequence of events to see a group just get completely deflated and feel completely out of the match and think like, okay, like everyone's just thinking about like, I guess I have to wake up for my plane ride back tomorrow. Just planning just your trip home, to the save, to Nicola Beneze's goal, to just come back right into it and then take it. And then just running onto the pitch afterward for all the celebration. Like that's awesome.
Yep.
And, but at the same time, I don't think I would trade any of that to like celebrate at home, because like DC United and that overtime was absolutely insane.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely. I mean, shout outs to Hartford. It, you know, in an imperfect situation, they've done a fantastic job. The Brass Bonanza is perfection. It's perfection. Like pulling that out and having that be tagged to us for that run of games is just fantastic. It's so
that was one of those things. A shout out to our game ops team going into Hartford. They wanted to really capture the feeling of being out there, at least like acknowledge it, and to do that is honestly like in some ways it feels like it's obvious, but it's still such a stroke of genius, because the first time when we heard it, I think everyone got amped about it, and I think that was so great.
Will saying, can we take the song home? And my answer is no. It's special. It's a Hartford song. When we play in Hartford, we play there, but not back home.
We haven't even played Gloria yet in at BMO Field. I'm just saying. So
yeah. I mean, we've got Depeche Mode, and we've got Gloria, and we've got the legend. We got Legend TFC. Everything's good. Gavin wanted to correct himself, and he said, "I meant more in general, not COVID based." I've been to a lot of games with Gavin, and as a European English guy, he has a problem with fans coming to the stands, 15 minutes after kickoff, but that's a whole other episode, Gavin.
I think none of us have urban planning degrees though that can fix Toronto Transit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
I don't know something here, but a
system of pulleys and
to seriously answer Gavin's question, there's just like a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. Obviously, every Toronto sports team is trying to work with the government on figuring out ways to safely travel across the border, but it's kind of like a situation where safety, I think, at this moment should come first,
absolutely,
above everything else. And we all are just in pain not being able to see it live, and not being able to be there. Like I miss just being out there with the content team, and just staying there. I mean, it's Michael can attest to it. Like there's something, well, I think everyone can, but there's something about when you're actually in those 90 minutes that everything is just like free. Like you're working all the time to prepare for it, and you're working on all the post-game coverage, but when they are playing, like you're just free to what's happening on there, and it's such a wonderful feeling. So I think we all want that to come back, but I think it's just patience at this point.
Yeah
All right, I think we'll let you go here, Jerome, but I think we're all in agreement that the entire TFC content social team's done a fantastic job this
year.
The way you guys have kind of brought everyone in to feel close to the team when we can't be at the moment has been incredible. So I think we all really appreciate the work you guys have done.
Could I do then a quick shout out to at least most, if I can?
Please do.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're gonna do Greg Vierman again, Kylie Templeton, Eric Giacometti, Thomas Larrays, Shane Wright, Maria Papadakis, Gareth Wheeler, Terry Dunfield, everyone on Footy Talk, like everyone at Homestand, all the coverage, you guys doing stuff, people on Raptors Twitter, or not Raptors, oh God, Toronto
the orchestra, play them out, guys, play them out.
Start the movement. I want to see Raptors Twitter, get it on this TFC bandwagon. Start the movement.
TFC Twitter, just like everyone who's out there, TFC memes, just all the stuff that is out there, that weirdly made us feel still connected,
Wow.
even though we have not been physically around each other, is astounding. Like, we try to do what we can to keep fans connected with us and seeing more things behind the scenes and seeing more of the personality, but it's a two-way thing. So mutually, like what you all do out there to stay engaged with us keeps us going just as much as us trying to like provide stuff to you.
Aw, thank you.
All right, Jerome. We're not done yet, though. We're not done yet.
Oh, we got
gotta-
more? Okay.
We got a couple. No, we got a couple weeks to go. I meant. And
Oh, yes.
Gotta grind out that
Still more to
content
happen.
No, you're done. You're done.
Yeah, you specifically, you're gone.
TFC is still going. Yeah. Cheers.
Thanks,
Take
Jerome.
care. Thank you.
Guys, before I forget, I got to do my first retraction apology because last week, I don't know if it was because
Wow,
of KJ's
this is
English.
breaking. This is
Well,
the
I
first
don't
time
know.
we're seeing this. Hold on.
I don't know if it's because of KJ's accent, but I said the MLS twice. And it drives me crazy when people say the MLS. Like when someone says, I want to
How
go
is
to
he
the
still on the show?
I
Yeah,
know,
we
I
gotta
know.
put a fan guard here.
How did he not cut this
Immediately after I got off the air, somebody took me to task on Twitter, and I was like, dude, you're right. I can't stand it either. So I'm going to have to apologize next week because it does drive me crazy, and I don't know why I did it, and I don't know why I did it twice, but I did it twice, and I want to apologize for that. So there we go.
All is forgiven, Jeff. All is forgiven.
Well, Michael, I hope you don't mind, but I think we're going to table the injury update for this week. I think we probably will have a better, more clear picture of it next week when we get another week off. So
Yeah,
maybe
thanks for letting me off
skip
the
it
hook
till
there.
then.
What I
no
will
worries.
say, is I'll give an update on Richie Lurie at least.
Sure.
Yeah, I want that update.
So we all saw what happened with Richie, and he was holding his groin. Obviously, it looked like Tony Gallagher was going to come into the match, and then miraculously out of nowhere, it's Richard Lurie with like a steel chair comes back in and holding his groin. Somehow manages to play an extra 5 minutes or so. He kicks the ball with the same groin, actually sends it downfield. So after the game, Greg Vanney told us that Richie thinks he's okay. Or he thinks that Richie's okay. He thinks there was a tweak or strain or something, but he did mention that groins are better than hamstrings or calves. So positive news is Greg Vanney does believe Richard Lurie will be able to, make it back for that first playoff game. The bad news is Greg Vanney believes that Richard Lurie will be able to make it back for that first playoff game. So we never know. We'll see. We'll see what's happening.
Well, yeah, mentioning that first playoff game, we now have a date on it, November 24th at 6 p.m. at Pratt and Whitney Stadium.
Was it 6?
Absolute
Wasn't it in the middle of the afternoon or I don't know. I guess
Thought it
you're
was
right.
6.
I guess
6
you're right.
p.m.
man.
Sorry, 6 p.m.
Okay.
Eastern. Yeah.
Cool. I'll start watching at 2 p.m. and I'll tell you what.
But don't even let me tell you, we got a pregame show that day.
Exactly.
We got a
Yeah.
pregame
Yeah,
show
so you guys
that
can
day.
all look forward to that. But we know they'll play either Nashville, Montreal, or New England. We mentioned kind of the momentum going into the playoffs, and I think Toronto FC is probably one of those clubs that maybe won't mind that we get a couple of weeks off here to sit through an international break while they lick their wounds, recover, get a bit more training, and
Good
hopefully
point.
have some guys back and hopefully get that system together come playoff times. What are you guys' thoughts on?
Mitch, you said training and my heart dropped out of my body. Right? Like more training sessions. Training is the TFC killer, man. So maybe less training and more, binging that show about the chest.
They are back home, so they are, training a little bit less, but they did say they're going to try to figure out a way to potentially, train at home together. We'll see if that happens, but hey, we did stumble over that finish line, but I think we can all agree the major reason why it was due to injury. So as Mitch said, this international break could be a blessing in disguise to Toronto FC here as they do try and get some bodies healthy. We did see Ozo go that 45. We saw Josie go 40 minutes, but perhaps, in 2 weeks' time, they can double those outcomes. And perhaps their movement and their sharpness, everything will be a little bit better. So we'll see. What I will say again, though, for the first time saying this, is that TFC are playing a team in the play-in round. So a team that plays 4 days earlier than they do. So that team will sort of be a little bit sharper than you'd expect Toronto FC to be. So that, and KJ kind of mentioned that last week, it could be a little bit of a disadvantage for the Reds there. we do know their opponents could be Nashville, New England, or of course the Montreal Impact. So he'll keep an eye. It's not an easy fixture. Go ahead, Jeff.
Here's my take. Aside from the injuries, which is a physical issue, I think that a lot of what's going on with TFC is mental, and that won't get decided unless they play competitive games. So it's like 2 weeks, 2 years, whatever. There is a part of this that will not be worked out unless there's success on the field of competitive play. So we're just delaying the inevitable, right? We won't find out if TFC is going to bounce back until they bounce back or they don't. You know what I mean? I know that sounds totally obvious, but there's some detail to that, I guess.
If you're in that locker room, Jeff, what's your sort of mindset right now after, losing 3 of your last 4? And I'll even add to that, this team's also struggled to score immensely. They've scored more than one time once in their last 9 games. They've scored 3 times in a match. They haven't done that in over a month. The last time they did that was, I want to say at the end of September. So,
I mean, I love that you're asking the guy that doesn't really know what a rondo is, what the temperature in the locker room is.
No, I'm not asking. I'm saying, what would your mentality be?
Leave it all on the field in 2.5 weeks, which is a huge time to wait to exhale. Do you know what I mean? Like it's all gonna be out on the field of play on November. What day was it and what time was it again? 20 something at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
24th at 6.
There we go. Whatever the hell it was. But you're waiting for that. So everything else, all the training is towards that moment, and that moment can't come quick enough. That's what I'd be thinking. And certainly if I was to apply it to say, I know I've got a film screening in 2 weeks. I would want it to happen in 2 minutes as opposed to 2 weeks, because the longer that I wait, the more the voices in my head start to coagulate into something that may necessarily, take my eyes off the prize. Again, I'm no athlete, but that's just my take.
No, again, the reason why I sort of asked that was because there's 2 sides to Mitch's point there, is that the international break could be very good for TFC to kind of go through this mental battle and kind of sort of forget about everything. But on the same hand, they're kind of eager to get back on the field and set things right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how do they get that mindset? You can't do that. The only way to do that is by playing, and they're not going to be playing for another 2.5 weeks. So
Michael said it better, way better than what I said.
I know you said pretty much the same thing. So, I mean, it's an interesting position to be in. Obviously, not the position they want to be in, but we're not writing them off by any means, and nowhere close to that, because this team has shown on its day that it can be the best team in the MLS. And they've also shown on the day they can be not so good. They're not definitely. They're still FC Cincinnati in this league. They're not the worst team in the MLS. Come on.
This would have been a good time to play the Voyageurs Cup final.
But there is no. I mean, at the end of the day, now for Hamilton, it's probably a bad time to play the Voyageurs Cup final.
I don't know. It's right in between both teams' fixtures, but I don't think
that's actually a good point.
I
think probably quarantine regulations and
that too.
Obviously, their playoff push is priority.
Yeah.
But yeah, good thing that you brought up Forge. Shout out Forge, because they could actually qualify for the CONCACAF Champions League before Toronto FC could.
Yeah. What they're doing is pretty incredible.
That's a Canadian Premier League side. So definitely shout out to those guys. Before we close off, Ivan here has a really good question. Actually,
that is a good question. Yeah.
So who would you prefer to play in playoffs out of the 3 possible teams? Again, those teams are the Montreal Impact, New England Revolution, and Nashville. Mitch, we'll start with you there.
Well, it's tough to say Nashville, because if I'm correct, Toronto FC's never played them. So that's a tough one to know the matchup there. They have a draw and a win against New England, and mostly have had the better of Montreal. I mean, it's got to be Montreal. I think if there's any game that can kick Toronto FC back into that strong mentality, it's got to be a game against the Montreal Impact. So if I'm Toronto, I'm hoping it's Montreal that comes out of it, and I'm hoping a win against Montreal kickstarts a strong playoff campaign.
Yeah, there's really no argument against the Impact. I mean, I know it's a scary proposition, but it's a team we know. It's a team we know we can beat. Nashville is pretty stingy at the back. And New England is kind of a wild card. You know, who knows what? And if we're going to New England, then forget about New England. I'll take
We're not.
Montreal.
Yeah, I don't think we're going. We're
No,
we're the
they'd be
home
coming.
game,
They'd be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Good.
we have a bit of a home game.
Even still, how can you say no to the cold firm? You just can't.
I would love to see that matchup personally from a Toronto FC perspective. I'd rather them face New England or Nashville just because anything can happen in that Montreal game, and I think we know that better than anybody's. You know, Montreal can grind something out, take it at penalties, and you never know. Or you know they can outright win it. You never know in that fixture, but. Yeah,
general consensus is Montreal. Like, it's,
as other people are pointing out, you know, a lot of people do want to see Montreal. We have seen them a couple times this year, but did they dominate Montreal by any sort of stretch aside?
we had that one track meet that was back and forth, and then
where Josie Altidore was winner.
I believe
I
so.
know the 4-3 and
the 4-3.
The 4-3 in the MLS is back, and that
Yeah.
again, Iowa Canola kind of his hat trick, and that was. That game itself again. That's a perfect example. How wide open was that game? It's so back and forth. And it goes.
What did they beat us? The one that
they also beat us.
Yes, was
1-0.
Los? Yeah, it was
Was
Los.
it 1-0?
And that was the Pozuelo penalty.
Yeah. Montreal. Let's take. They're not going to do that again. So Montreal. Let's take
And
them.
obviously the 2-1 late winner for Josie Altidore there. So again, I still stand by what I said. Yeah, we're 2-1 or 2-1 against them this year, but anything can happen in that kind of fixture.
Yeah. Exactly.
Before we wrap up here, do you want to rant? I'll give you the floor.
Oh, you want me to rant? Yeah, I mean, how hilarious is it that the shield that they raised in Philly was the web manager's fiance's sister's boyfriend's repurposed Captain America shield? I think that's delightful.
Great story.
People were suggesting that I'd get mad because it didn't arrive in Philly, and they figured with the amount of vitriol that I had tossed at the Shield Foundation in recent memory. But I've lived through American shipping companies in my other life, and I know how terrible they are. So I really, really can't get mad at somebody for being screwed over by shipping companies. There is a possibility that they didn't pay enough. I mean, if anybody knows FedEx as well as I do, the only way to guarantee that it gets there is to not get the lowest thing on the rung. You got to go like super luxe and deluxe and spend a ridiculous amount of money to ensure your package gets there. They probably didn't do that. If MLS had been in charge because of the economy of scale and because they probably had a FedEx account the day before mailing out to Philly, it probably would have been there. Am I as mad about it? Not even close. What I am mad about is that the board hasn't resigned yet. I mean, that should have happened the second they crawled back their decision. In any business situation, that is the causality. I mean, you make a mistake that big, you lose your job. So the fact that they're being allowed to remain there fills me with a certain sense of impending dread. But I certainly can't be mad about the shield not being there, especially when we got a story as amazing as that. And he's not getting his shield back, by the way. Apparently, it's going right to the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame. So
that's poetic justice right there.
Yeah. So it wasn't really a rant because it was just me talking, but I suppose.
There's more us learning about the ins and outs of FedEx, but
oh god, I could do Dave now. Oh my god.
We'll wrap it up there before we ruin any potential sponsorships. But thanks again to Jerome for stopping by. That was an awesome discussion. I really like these insights we get to some of the behind the scenes things like that on the show, and certainly this was no different. Thank you, of course, for everyone for interacting today. Lively discussion as always in the comments section there. Kevin and Sophia behind the scenes, even though Jeff still can't spell any of your names correctly. And of course, on behalf of Michael Singh and Jeffrey P. Nesker, my name is Mitchell Tierney. Till next Tuesday, playoff time, folks.
Cheers, guys.